Some structures were built to showcase power, ambition, and progress, others to inspire, protect, or connect people. But when time moves on and purpose fades, even the grandest creations can be left behind. Across the world, enormous monuments now stand silent, slowly surrendering to rust, weather, and memory. Today, we step inside these forgotten giants and uncover the stories they left behind. Across the world, massive structures stand empty and abandoned. They're relics of a forgotten past that have been left to decay. But all is not forgotten, because in today's video, we're going to explore 15 of the most massive abandoned structures in the world. Number 15. Power Plant IM. In Little Charleroi in Belgium, in a quiet neighborhood, is one of the largest abandoned structures in Europe, Power Plant IM. This stone behemoth, once a coal-burning powerhouse, now looms over the landscape, its cooling structure no longer generating energy, but still managing to generate plenty of onlookers. It was constructed in 1921, during an era when coal was king. When it was fully operational, it was among the largest of its kind in Belgium, providing energy to the entire region. The most iconic part of this plant is the massive cooling tower, which once had the capacity to cool 480,000 gallons of water every minute. The way it worked was deceptively simple. Hot water was pumped into the tower and cooled by natural drafts of wind rushing through the portals at the base, with steam billowing out in columns overhead, a familiar sight in the region for decades. But by the early 2000s, Power Plant IM was responsible for a shocking 10% of Belgium's total carbon emissions. This environmental impact made it the target of protests, most notably from Greenpeace in 2006. The negative attention, combined with shifting energy policies, led to the plant's closure in 2007. Since then, though, it's become a relic of industrial history, slowly decaying but far from forgotten. The cooling tower, with its cavernous interior and towering height, has taken on a second life as a visual marvel, despite its rusting frame and cracked concrete. There is an undeniable beauty in the way that it merges the industrial might with nature's reclamation. Number 14. The Orgov Radio-Optical Telescope. The Orgov Radio-Optical Telescope, or ROT-54 for short, is a colossal relic of Soviet-era ambition. This 180-foot wide radio telescope was once at the forefront of scientific research and a shifting symbol of technological prowess. Today, it stands abandoned, a silent witness to a past era of astronomical discovery and competition among rivals. Construction of the telescope began in 1975 in Armenia during the Soviet Union's push to lead in space exploration and scientific advancements. The project took a decade to complete, with the telescope finally operational by 1986. Located in the village of Orgov, its location was chosen for the clear, high-altitude skies ideal for radio and optical observations. The facility's primary goal was to study the mysteries of the universe, from distant stars to cosmic irradiation, combining both radio and optical data, which was pretty unique for its time. The telescope itself is 177 feet in diameter, and ROT-54 was capable of capturing radio waves from distant galaxies, pulsars, and other celestial phenomena. However, political and economic turmoil in the Soviet Union and its eventual collapse in the early 90s brought about challenges to the observatory. Operations here became intermittent after 1990. A brief resurgence of activity came in the mid-90s when some of the equipment was modernized, allowing the telescope to function sporadically until the early 2010s. Today, the telescope complex lies in a state of decay. The once state-of-the-art facility is now an industrial ghost town, with rusted machinery, crumbling concrete structures scattered across the hillsides, and the surrounding buildings once filled with scientists are now just silent and overtaken by encroaching vegetation. It is a strange juxtaposition, nature reclaiming a site that was once dedicated to exploring the farthest reaches of space. Number 13. Frying Pan Tower. So from a distance, Frying Pan Tower could easily be mistaken for an abandoned oil rig, its rusting metal frame rising above the waves in the middle of the ocean. But upon closer inspection, it's clear that this is no ordinary platform. Instead, it's a unique lighthouse on stilts located 32 miles off the coast of North Carolina, in an area of the ocean known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic. Completed in 1964, Frying Pan Tower was a marvel of maritime engineering at the time. The two-story platform featured living quarters for the Coast Guard crews who manned it, as well as a helipad for resupply missions and crew rotations. Supplies were flown in by helicopter, and storms frequently battered the structure, making it a pretty harsh and unforgiving environment. But despite those challenges, the lighthouse remained a critical part of the region's maritime safety system. By the 1970s, technological advances had begun to change the landscape of lighthouse operation. Automated systems allowed the light to run without the need for a full-time crew, and by the late 1990s, Frying Pan Tower had been fully automated. Once Frying Pan Tower was abandoned, its future became uncertain. Several proposals were floated regarding what to do with the rusting platform, from demolishing it entirely to converting it into an artificial reef for marine life. However, dismantling such a large, remote structure would have been both dangerous and costly. The same conditions that made it difficult to live and work on the tower also made it nearly impossible to safely tear down. Number 12. Megaprojects Castle. When it comes to abandoned structures, none have a more ironic history than the Megaprojects Castle. The story of the Russian castle is one of wealth and decline. Once a symbol of Russian aristocratic privilege, it now sits empty and crumbling, a grand relic of nothing more than a bed gone awry. The story of this castle begins in the 19th century, when a Russian nobleman, while traveling in France, found himself in a heated debate with a French lord. The two squabbled over their respective countries' architecture, and tired of hearing about the magnificence of a French chateau, the Russian boasted that he could build a castle of equal splendor in Russia. The Russian purchased a large plot of land in the town and hired one of Russia's finest architects to design the castle. The result was a bizarre fusion of medieval, German, and French styles, an architectural anomaly in the Russian landscape. But nothing lasts forever, and with the onset of the Russian Revolution in the early 20th century, the Russian was forced to flee his beloved estate. His castle, too, fell victim to the upheaval. After the revolution, the estate was repurposed for practical uses. It became a college for a time, and during World War II, it served as a hospital. Yet, despite those new purposes, the building's slow decline had already begun. By the mid-20th century, this castle was abandoned, left to the elements. Its once elegant towers and turrets began to crumble, and nature gradually reclaimed the grounds. The floors had become treacherous, and vines now staked through the broken windows and cracked walls. Number 11. The Bagger 258. The Bagger 258, also known as the Blue Wonder, was once a colossus of raw power, only to become an eerie monument of abandonment. Built in 1964 by the Lockhammer Heavy Machinery Company, in what was then East Germany, Bagger 258 is a bucket wheel excavator, a machine designed for open-pit mining. Its purpose was to dig and move massive amounts of earth to expose coal layers, a vital task during East Germany's energy production drive. However, after decades of hard labor, this gargantuan machine now sits idle, forgotten in a German field, its blue paint slowly chipping away in the elements. Bagger 258 was built for a task as monumental as its size. It stretches 563 feet in length and stands about 164 feet tall and weighs an incredible 3,800 tons. The bucket wheel alone is 41 feet in diameter, supported by a massive 220-foot-long boom arm capable of reaching excavating heights up to 115 feet. Despite the size, Bagger 258 could not outrun time. After nearly 4 decades and was retired in 2002. By then, the mine had run out of coal to extract, leaving the once unstoppable Bagger 258 with nothing more to dig. And unlike some other monumental machines that have been restored or turned into museums, Bagger 258 was left to decay in a field. Number 10. Geraja Ayam. Geraja Ayam, or the Chicken Church, is an abandoned and unusual structure deep in the forests of Indonesia. Despite its name, this bizarre building was intended to resemble a dove and not a chicken, though its bird-like form has led locals to call it by its now famous nickname, ayam. It's the Indonesian word for chicken, and given the building's large head and tail feathers, the comparison is understandable. In its prime, it was more than just a chapel. The upper floors hosted religious services open to any faith, while the lower levels were used for charitable works such as rehabilitation services and youth outreach. The church served as a symbol of unity and sanctuary for spiritual reflection, but its unconventional shape made it stand out as one of the oddest religious buildings in the world. But despite its lofty purpose, the construction of it was plagued by financial difficulties. By 2000, work had to be halted on the building, leaving it incomplete. The unfinished structure was abandoned to the surrounding forest, where it began to decay over time. As years passed, the chicken church became a local curiosity, its deteriorating form taking on a more haunting yet oddly charming appearance. Today, Garaja Ayam has found new life as a tourist attraction, and while it still retains its strange chicken-like shape, the interior has been spruced up with colorful murals depicting local mythology and history. A small cafe now operates inside the structure, offering traditional Indonesian snacks, and visitors can climb to the top of the bird's head for some panoramic views of the surrounding forest. Number 9. Oceanwide Plaza. Oceanwide Plaza is an unfinished residential and retail complex in downtown Los Angeles, located across from the Crypto.com Arena. Originally envisioned as a luxury development by Chinese firm Oceanwide Holdings, the project was designed to include 3 massive towers, featuring 5-star luxury hotel condos and extensive retail space. Construction began in 2015, but the project stalled out in 2019 due to financial problems, leaving the building incomplete and all but abandoned. Oceanwide Plaza was supposed to be a signature development in the heart of LA, part of a larger effort to revitalize the area along Figueroa Street. The tallest tower, standing at 675 feet with 49 floors, was set to house a Park Hyatt hotel with 184 rooms. Towers 2 and 3 were designed to be 530 feet tall, each with 40 floors, containing over 500 high-end condominiums. The ground floors would feature a sprawling 153,000 square feet of retail space, and there was even a 2-acre private park planned for the 9th floor. In early 2019, work on the project abruptly stopped when Oceanwide Holdings ran out of funds. By 2023, the project faced foreclosure, with the developer owing over $157 million to lenders. As of 2024, the building still sits unfinished, with no clear path to completion. In late 2023, though, taggers began infiltrating the building, using the unfinished structure as a canvas for their work. The graffiti is particularly visible on the windows and walls of the tallest tower, and what started as an isolated incident has grown into a wider movement, with more taggers joining in, turning Oceanwide Plaza into an unofficial hub for street art. The LA Police Department increased patrols around the site, and the Los Angeles City Council launched a campaign to clean up the graffiti. In February 2024, the council voted to bill Oceanwide approximately $4 million for graffiti removal and security improvements. Number 8. Nara Dreamland. So, Nara Dreamland was a Japanese theme park modeled after Disneyland, opening in 1961 and operating until its closure in 2006. Its initial success was largely due to its resemblance to Disneyland, complete with its own Main Street USA, Sleeping Beauty Castle, and various iconic attractions like a Matterhorn-style bobsled ride. However, the park's eventual decline came swiftly after opening Tokyo Disneyland in 1983, which led to a sharp decrease in visitors. For years, Nara Dreamland was a popular destination, drawing over 1 million people annually thanks to its familiar design and attractions. However, by 1979, plans for an official Disney park were set in motion, and in 1983, Tokyo Disneyland opened its doors. This marked the beginning of the end for Nara Dreamland. The park's situation worsened in 2001, when 2 new theme parks, Tokyo Disney Sea and Universal Studios Japan, opened, providing some stiff competition. By 2006, attendance had plummeted to just under 400,000 visitors annually. That's not much, and for 10 years after its closure, it was left abandoned. Nature began to reclaim the park, with trees and plants growing through the decaying rides. The once colorful buildings and characters became weather-worn, giving the park a dystopian, eerie atmosphere. While official guards patrolled the grounds, finding trespassers, the park became a hotspot for urban explorers, who were drawn to the decaying remains of the attractions. Despite its desolate state, Nara Dreamland retained an unsettling charm, as its derelict structures echoed the dreams that once fueled its creation. The park became an iconic location for urban explorers, photographers, and adventurers. Moving on to number 7. Bali Boeing 737. In southern Bali, just off a major road near a limestone quarry, sits an abandoned Boeing 737. This aircraft has attracted attention for years, largely because of its unusual location and the mystery surrounding how it ended up in the middle of a field, nowhere near an airport. The plane, lacking any livery or identifying marks, became a local curiosity and a tourist destination in its own right. This Boeing 737 in question is located near the Bukit Peninsula, close to Pandawa Beach, and strangely, despite its size, no one seems to have witnessed its arrival. The theory is that the plane was likely purchased, disassembled, and transported to its current location to be reassembled. The field where the plane sits is surrounded by a small hut and shipping containers, adding to its abandoned surreal look. The idea of a Boeing being out there as a repurposed tourist attraction isn't unheard of in Bali. A similar abandoned plane can be found about 5 miles north, next to a Dunkin' Donuts of all things. Since its abandonment, the Boeing 737 became an informal tourist attraction. Visitors would climb around it, take photos, and speculate about its origins. Despite its decaying state, the plane had a strange allure, standing out against the quarry and the lush Balinese landscape. By 2021, the abandoned plane was being dismantled. Parts of the aircraft, including the fuselage, were removed and moved closer to the road, marking the end of its time as a full-size attraction. The decision to dismantle the plane remains somewhat unclear, but it signaled the end of one of Bali's most unusual landmarks. Number 6. Balaclava Submarine Base. The Balaclava Submarine Base, known as Object 825 GTS, is one of the most intriguing remnants of the Cold War era. Located within and beneath the Tavros Mountains in Crimea, Ukraine, it reminds us all of a time of great Soviet secrecy. While today it serves as a museum, its long abandonment after the collapse of the Soviet Union has left behind a haunting legacy of Cold War paranoia and military ambition. It also happens to look just like the perfect lair for a Bond villain. In 1953, with tensions between the USSR and the United States rising, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin ordered the construction of an underground submarine base. The aim was to create a facility capable of housing and repairing nuclear-armed submarines that could be launched in retaliation during a nuclear conflict. After years of searching, the ideal location was pinpointed: a narrow, hidden inlet in Balaclava that was nearly invisible from the sea and offered natural protection from storms. The base remained fully operational throughout the Cold War, but by 1993, the world had changed. The Cold War had ended and the Soviet Union had dissolved, and Russia's military had no further need for this massive underground facility. In 2000, the abandoned base was handed over to Ukraine's naval forces, but it remained in a state of decline until 2003, when the Sevastopol Marine Commission proposed turning it into a museum. The vision was to preserve this Cold War relic and offer visitors a glimpse into the clandestine past. By 2004, the Balaclava Submarine Base Museum was officially open to the public. Number 5. Quinlan Castle. Quinlan Castle, despite its imposing medieval appearance and grandiose name, is not actually a castle, but an apartment building located in Birmingham, Alabama. Built in 1927, it was designed in the style of a European fortress, complete with battlements, turrets, and arch-topped windows. Much like the stone castles of old, however, Quinlan Castle has been abandoned for decades, standing as a derelict reminder of a bygone era. Built in 1927 at the height of the Gothic Revival architectural movement, its name comes from its location on what was formerly known as Quinlan Avenue, a street named after Bishop Quinlan, who had purchased the land to establish Birmingham's first Catholic church. The design was the brainchild of architect William Welton, who drew inspiration from the castles he had seen serving in Europe during World War I. The building's tall, round turrets, battlements, and faux cannons made it a distinctive part of Birmingham's skyline. Welton's vision was to offer something unique and luxurious to the city's middle-class residents, living quarters that would feel both grand and secure, a nod to old-world Europe transplanted into the heart of Alabama. By the 1980s, Quinlan's castle novelty had begun to fade. The building was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1984, a move that recognized its architectural significance but did little to halt its decline. In 1993, the city of Birmingham took ownership of the building, refurbishing the exterior and adding decorative elements. The bright red doors, which still stand out today, were installed without handles, giving the castle an even more enigmatic look. Yet, despite all the efforts, Quinlan Castle couldn't escape its fate of abandonment. The building was vacated in the mid-1990s, and ever since, it's remained empty. Its grand facade, complete with cannons peeking out from the turrets, has been left to collect dust. A black fence now surrounds the part of the structure. While the castle is still visible to passers-by, it's become a ghostly presence in the neighborhood. Number 4. Big Muskie's Bucket. So, Big Muskie. It was once one of the largest earth-moving machines ever created, a colossal dragline excavator that towered nearly 22 stories and weighed 13,000 tons. Built by Eerily for the Central Ohio Coal Company, Big Muskie spent its working life uncovering vast quantities of coal in the Ohio countryside. However, despite its sheer size and strength, Big Muskie's reign came to an end, and today, all that remains is a single relic, the enormous bucket. This bucket, now sitting abandoned in a memorial park, is a stark reminder of the massive machine that once dominated this landscape. She was a beast of a machine, unrivaled in size and power during its heyday, a bucket that could hold 2 Greyhound buses side by side. This dragline excavator was built to remove overburden, that's the top layers of earth and rock covering coal deposits. She was constructed between 1967 and 69 and worked tirelessly for 22 years, removing more than 600 million cubic yards of material from the landscape and helping to uncover over 20 million tons of coal. While Big Muskie was an awesome machine, its fate was sealed by changes in environmental regulations and the coal industry itself. The passage of the Clean Air Act in 1977 signaled the beginning of the end for high-sulfur coal, and public opposition to strip mining in Ohio continued to grow. In 1999, amid pressure from the state of Ohio and Environmental Protection Agency to clean up the former mining sites, Big Muskie was dismantled for scrap. Despite efforts from enthusiasts and historians to preserve the machine as a museum piece, the cost associated with moving and maintaining it proved too high. She was cut up and sold for $700,000 worth of the recycled metal. The bucket is not the only feature at the Miners Memorial Park. The site also includes a wall of honor listing the names of employees from the Central Ohio Coal Company and serves as a tribute to those who lost their lives working in the mines. Nearby, the Wilds, a 10,000-acre wildlife park, was also built on land, and once stripped by Big Muskie, and is now home to endangered species from around the world. Number 3. Sathorn Unique Tower. Sticking out like an abandoned sore thumb in the Bangkok skyline, the Sathorn Unique Tower was once designed to be a gleaming symbol of Thailand's economic growth in the 1990s. Located near the Chao Phraya River, this 49-story skyscraper was envisioned as a luxury residential complex, offering views of the city and the river. Construction began with high hopes in the early 90s, with developers planning to cater to Bangkok's booming real estate market. However, those ambitions came to a sudden halt, and today the tower is not a glittering beacon of success, but an eerie, unfinished giant, the so-called ghost tower. At nearly 600 feet tall, the building was already a massive presence, but construction was halted before it could be completed. Today, the bare concrete skeleton remains, its hollow windows and exposed framework a stark reminder of the economic chaos that left Bangkok with more than 300 unfinished high-rises at the time. This tower has now stood abandoned for over 2 decades. There have been various attempts over the years to resume construction or repurpose the building, but none have been successful. The original developer resisted selling the project for a low price, holding out hope that a buyer would come along who would not complete the tower but repay the original investors. This never happened. The tower remains in limbo, a stalled monument to a different era of economic optimism. Many refer to it as the Ghost Tower, a nickname born not only of its abandoned state but also from local superstitions. Some believe that the land the building stands on was once a graveyard, and the tower is cursed, while others think that its location to the nearby Wat Yang Noir Temple makes it spiritually inauspicious. Number 2. The MX-1 platform. At first, MX-1 just looked like another hulking oil platform stationed off the coast of Peru, its steel legs stretching down into the North Sea. However, this particular platform held a different fate. After years of pumping oil from beneath the ocean floor, MX-1 was decommissioned, no longer needed for its original purpose. But rather than being scrapped and forgotten, MX-1 was given a new life, one that benefited the marine ecosystem where it once dominated. It was originally built to tap into the oil reserves off the coast of Los Órganos, Peru, situated in the North Sea. This platform was a crucial part of the region's oil production for many years. It stood as a symbol of industrial might, extracting fossil fuels from beneath the ocean to power the world above. However, like many oil platforms, its productivity eventually waned. By the time it was decommissioned, it had ceased to be profitable. The decision had to be made: dismantle the platform for scrap or find an alternative use for it. Fortunately, its location and structure made it an ideal candidate for something more environmentally valuable, an artificial reef. Rather than being hauled away or broken down, MX-1 was submerged and repurposed as a reef, a growing trend in marine conservation. Once the oil operations ceased, nature began to reclaim the metal frame. Over time, the steel transformed into a vibrant living reef, providing shelter for fish, sponges, and invertebrates, while the barnacle-encrusted legs became home to entire marine ecosystems. Today, the platform has become an underwater paradise. Descending into the depths surrounding the platform is like entering an amusement park of marine life. This artificial reef stretches down 200 feet beneath the surface, providing habitat for a remarkable variety of sea creatures. This reef also serves as a critical stopover for charismatic megafauna such as whale sharks, manta rays, and even hammerhead sharks. Each level of MX-1 offers something unique. At just 16 feet below the surface, hundreds of sergeant fish greet divers, darting among the pipes. Deeper down, at 50 feet, divers encounter a structure known as the wheel, where octopuses, nudibranchs, and other elusive creatures hide among the metal. All around, sea lions playfully swim by, while schools of Creole fish and sea bass create a vibrant, colorful backdrop. The waters around this MX-1 come alive with haunting songs of humpback whales too, creating a natural symphony that adds to this amazing experience. Number 1. Buzludzha. The Buzludzha monument is one of the most striking and massive abandoned structures in Europe. It was built during the height of Bulgaria's communist era. The structure stands as a reminder of a bygone political regime and the ambitious architecture that symbolized its ideals. Though now in a state of extreme dereliction, this monument's futuristic design and scale make it a site of fascination for visitors and urban explorers alike. In fact, its eerie atmosphere has led many to remark that it resembles the perfect lair for the likes of Dr. Evil. This monument was constructed to commemorate the founding of the Bulgarian socialist movement, with ties to both the 1868 battle between Bulgarian rebels and the Ottoman Empire, and the 1891 socialist gathering on the same peak. By the 1970s, as Bulgaria was deeply influenced by Soviet ideology, the government decided to create a monumental structure celebrating socialism and communism. Construction began on January 23, 1974, under the direction of architect Georgi Stolyov, a prominent figure in Bulgaria's architectural scene. It's located at an altitude of around 4,600 feet. The peak was leveled using explosives, making way for this massive structure. The project cost an estimated 14.2 million leva, the equivalent of around $35 million today, and it involved extensive labor. Its central feature is a UFO-like circular hall topped by a massive concrete dome, with a red star-shaped window that once glowed as a beacon of Soviet pride. Inside, the structure was adorned with over 930 square meters of mosaics depicting the history of the Bulgarian Communist Party, the labor of the people, and the faces of the communist leaders like Lenin and Marx. The fall of communism marked the end of the monument's glory days, and the socialist government that had built it was toppled, and the monument, no longer politically relevant, was quickly abandoned. After 1989, the monument was left to decay, its mosaics, once intricate and vibrant, had begun to crumble due to neglect, harsh weather, and vandalism. The structure's reinforced concrete frame, though still standing, began to weaken, making the monument increasingly dangerous to enter. Efforts to preserve or repurpose the building have been sporadic and largely unsuccessful. Despite its dilapidated state, though, it's drawn thousands of urban explorers, photographers, and curious tourists. In recent years, a foundation has spearheaded efforts to stabilize and restore parts of the monument, and in 2018, it was recognized by the Europa Nostra as one of the 7 most endangered heritage sites in Europe, prompting increased efforts to save the structure. These abandoned structures aren't just empty shells of concrete and steel, they're time capsules of human ambition, failure, and change. From industrial titans to futuristic monuments, each one reminds us that even the mightiest creations can be temporary. But as long as they stand, they continue to tell their stories, waiting for the world to remember them once again.